Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is WatchArc. My name is Simone, 22-year-old Italian broke watch enthusiast. And just before we start the video, just one quick disclaimer. I don't see myself as someone that knows everything about watches. Probably most people around you know much more than me. But a couple of years back, I started watch collecting, and I think that some people in my position that I was a couple of years back might benefit from these sort of videos. So it's not from a know-it-all perspective. If you disagree with me, that's super cool. Leave me a comment down below explaining why. And without further ado, let's get into the video. So today, as you've read from the title, we are talking about your first automatic watch. So I think it's a super important buying decision because most people are outside of the watch bubble, don't even really know the difference between an automatic watch and a quartz watch. So if you're starting to research automatic watches, if you're starting to get interested in that, it means that you are starting to get into the rabbit hole, you know. Good luck, you're going to have to spend a lot of money. But outside of that, it means that you're starting to get into the hobby, and that's wonderful. But when you make your first big buy of an automatic watch, I think you have to consider a couple of factors that you usually don't. Some people see this moment as a very important one, myself included. My first automatic was a Vagary G-Matic, and it's a watch that I still wear to this day. I still adore it. It's obviously not going to be the best watch you own. It's not going to be your most expensive watch. In 10 years time, if you are if you keep on being interested in watches, you probably will buy more expensive watches, or frankly better watches. But your first automatic, I think it's always going to be the little bit of a sentimental piece that you will keep close to your heart for years. So I think it's a very important buying decision, and if you want to buy a watch that will last you, you have to be a bit considerate. So in this video, I'm not going to provide with model numbers or specific watches that you should buy because I think that's totally subjective. But what I will do is try to give you a couple of things that to look at in a watch when you want to buy your first automatic. So the first thing, it's pretty obvious and it applies to most watch buying decisions, but you have to look at the style of the watch. So if you're someone that lives an outdoorsy life, you go out a lot, or maybe you have a heavy work, like you work in construction or whatever, you might want to consider buying a watch which is a bit more tough. And let's stop saying that automatic watches are not tough. They are as tough as quartz watches, maybe not as a G-Shock, but that's specifically designed to be a very hard to break watch. But these things, whilst they can be fragile, they're not fragile in the sense that if you drop them they break. Sometime that might happen, obviously, because it's an object, but it's not more fragile than a quartz watch or whatever. So if you work construction, if you are someone that lives an outdoorsy life, you don't have to stick to very big quartz watches. You also can buy automatic watches, but you might want to consider a watch with a lot of water resistance, so like a diver. For example, my last video, I did the review of Orient Prey 2. I think that's a great watch, but in general, a dive watch or a field watch, something that's a bit more outdoorsy. Or if you work at an office and you have to dress up quite often, you might want to go for a more classic style of watch. Like, for example, this one is my Seiko 5 SNXS 77K. I posted the review for this one a couple of months back. Here is the link. It's up here, I think. But it's a beautifully made watch. The thing is that Seiko doesn't really do these anymore. They shifted their focus to more expensive watches, not dramatically more expensive, like 300, 400 euros. But this one was 100 euros and it was a great option. It's still out there, but it's getting harder and harder to find for these sort of prices. So you have to look at the style of the watch to make sure it's something that you will actually going to wear in a proper environment and not regret buying it. As I said, this is obviously true for all your watch buying decisions, but for the first automatic, being such a sentimental piece, I think it's even more dramatic that you take this one into consideration. The second thing, it's again pretty obvious, but not a lot of people think about this one. So you have to buy an automatic watch. So the big difference between automatic and quartz watches, it's the movement, obviously. But one thing that people don't really consider when they start out, myself included, if you buy an automatic watch, that's not it. You're going to have to spend money on it, because after a couple of years, all automatic watches need a service. Some of them take more time to require a service, like Vostok watches are, the Vostok states that they are good for 10 years. This is not the case with most watches. Most watches require, or automatic watches, require a service after 4 or 5 years. So if you buy it, it's not it. You have to spend money on it furthermore. And if you buy more automatic watches, you have to spend more money on servicing. One clever thing to do that I think most people don't do when buying your first automatic watches is to look at the movement for the specs, obviously, so you want to have a precise, reliable, hard to break movement. But another thing is to buy a movement which is cheap to repair. For example, Seiko NH35, very ubiquitous, very present in a lot of watches, even outside of Seiko. So it's very cheap to find parts for it and to repair it. So it's very cheap to maintain the watch as it is. Other watches which are affordable, like Orient watches, for example, have in-house movement only from Orient. Whilst it's a cool thing to have an in-house movement, you have to take into consideration the fact that it's much more expensive to service it, because you have to send it to Orient more often. So you have to think about that, because you might buy a lot of watches and then find yourself in the position of having to spend a lot of money, or keeping them not working in your watch box because you don't have the money to repair them. So your first automatic watch might have an NH35, a Seiko 7S26, or even a Miyota 8000, a Miyota 9000 if you have a bit of money to spend. Those are all movement that it's very easy to find parts for, and that are great options in my opinion. And the third and most important thing in my opinion, as always, is enjoy your watches. As I said, your first automatic, it's not going to be your most expensive watch, your best watch, your best spec'd watch. But don't be a snob about it, okay? Automatic watches are very cool, but they are not inherently better than quartz watches. A lot of people, I don't know why, like to mock other people for their watches, which is not something that's good to do. So be a decent person. If you buy your first automatic watch, doesn't mean you're better than people that don't really want to buy or can't spend the money to buy automatic watches. These hobby is a luxury if you don't buy luxury watches, because most people don't really care about watches. And if you have the money to spend on watches, it means that all other things in your life are pretty much figured out. Be decent about it. You bought your first automatic watch, that's super cool. This is one of the best hobbies out there. As I said, be ready to spend a lot of money, but it's very fun. But no, don't make it less fun for yourself and other people, please. So pretty much this concludes today's quick video. A couple of things. This camera, this is my new camera. It's a Lumix G9. It broke on me. I'm actually now recording from an external audio source, so it's gonna have to go into Lumix for repair. So for a couple of weeks you might not be able to see videos from this channel, but after that we'll be back on track. Sorry for my absence, which is a bit long, but I had exams, I had to work, all the usual stuff, but that's figured out now. So after I repair this stupid camera, it's all going to be set. So thank you guys for watching. This has been WatchArk. My name is Simone, 22-year-old Italian broke watch enthusiast.